Presentation by Mr. Matyas Prommer, General Secretary, CEEweb for Biodiversity. His lecture topic today is the Global Resource Gap. Please welcome him.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting our organization. And as ICD's intelligence didn't find anything about CEEweb, let me introduce just in a few words what we are doing and who we are. CEEweb stands for Central Eastern European Working Group for Enhancing Biodiversity. It's a bit long, so CEEweb it's easier. And we are an umbrella organization for smaller nature conservation NGOs in Central and Eastern Europe. Although our main topic is about conserving biodiversity, we somehow sneaking into other businesses as well, which is related to conservation of biodiversity. So this is just to start, and we started now. So we heard a lot about growing resource uses and depleting resources as well. And before going into a bit more details, I just would like to give two thoughts as really a starting point to better understand what I'm going to talk about. One of these prerequisites is that we are living in a finite system as for resources. So it's we cannot use resources in an unlimited way. The other starting point is that decoupling does not exist in our point of view, which means that we think that you cannot separate resource use and economic growth, as some of the economists are trying to say. Yeah, I really don't want to talk much about the growing bird population and some other issues and the problems themselves. We heard a lot, and probably you heard even more because I arrived today. And what I would like to say is just offer a new approach, a new tool that some of you may use in the future. A lot of young people there, so you still have the chance. We tried in Hungary, but we didn't get through, but I tell a little bit more about this later. Okay, so far I heard about the problems and the use of resources, and at least today I heard about only end-of-pipe solutions, green energy, and improving efficiency. In our point of view, these are just end-of-pipe solution if you look at the problem as a whole. And it's really problematic in a way, and you should have a different approach from the input side as well. What's the wrong with using only end-of-the-pipe solutions to all these problems we heard? Green energy sometimes, or quite sometimes, it's against biodiversity. We heard this already. Of course, there are ways to avoid that, but recently, not many people think about that. Just a very simple example is putting wind farms on windy places all around the seaside. For example, in many cases, there are the main routes for migrating birds, and that causes a problem. Also in the US and in Europe as well. We face that already. And this is not just because I'm a bird watcher too. And if you think a bit deeper, this new energy, green energy and new technologies, high tech, needs special materials, special raw materials, like rare minerals. We are very proud here in Europe and the US that how developed we are and how smart we are solving these problems and solving the problem of use of energy with using green energies and just making up new technologies. But only a few people know about the problems we are causing all around in the third world. My friend is working in West Africa, and he's doing environmental impact assessments for World Bank. But this is just, you know, something to put on the table, because they cannot stop anything there. And a recent case, whatever on the company bought an entire mountain in Sierra Leone, and basically they will just mine away the mountain for some rare minerals there. You should know about these mountains, that it holds about 700 species of butterflies. In whole Europe, we have not more than 500 or 550. So this is the other end of green energy and green technologies. So if you think of this, and if you consider the whole picture, you should consider this as well. And as for the efficiency, just during the launch, we were talking about Jevons paradox. This paradox explains that the more efficient we are, the more, with any kind of resources, the more we use in that resource in absolute term. It's a simple logic, because we think that, oh, we are very efficient, so we need to use less for different special activity. We are more efficient using fuel in the cars than we are having just more cars, or we are traveling further away because we can afford it. This is sort of beyond this logic. I'm not sure if you understand. I'm not a best explainer, but if you look at Jevons paradox in the internet, you will find that. So efficiency itself will not be the solution. This is not to say that we don't need those technologies, because in the end, this is how we should end it up, and we should replace fossil fuels. And if you talk about other resources, those technologies will help us. So this tool, what I'm going to show you, is actually can be applied to any kind of resources. But just to make it simple, I will show you the basics of this on the example of energy. So the main idea is to start to deal about the input, because no one's really dealt with that. What are the challenges of this regulation if you want to basically keep people limited as for resource use? Yes, one more thing. This is sort of against the recent logic of business and mainstream economy, because it is built on indefinite growth, which does not exist. So you should be aware of that. And this makes this is the most problematic part of this, to change this logic, which is ruling the world for hundreds or several hundreds of years. Nothing wrong with growth itself. I'm an ecologist, and this is the basic feature of population, to grow, but other population, other species have other limiting factors. Now we humans basically eliminated all the limited factors. The only ones are now the resources. So we should somehow limit ourselves on long term, and this will have an effect on the outputs and the results, like climate change as well, on long term. So what are the challenges? You can see here this nice table. We experienced that in practice in Hungary. Actually, if you have a structure which is very demanding as for resources, first, obviously, you need to change the structure. Of course, a very basic example, the cars are just developing year by year, using less and less energy and using alternative energy sources. This is the same all kind of human and social structures as well. We heard about the undervaluation of use of natural resources in one of the previous presentations, how much it is undervalued, so I don't really want to go into details now. As for maximum profit benefit privatization externalities, I think many of us coming from different countries can agree that all the countries, what you can see, that some individuals or some companies just taking the benefits of the resources. But as for the externalities, like cleaning up after the companies or taking care about the health of the labor, it's not up to companies anymore, but it's up to the state. So they don't want to privatize that, obviously. So, and this comes again from the basic logic of the mainstream economy, which is try to maximize the profit. Obviously, externalities is something they should spend on and decrease the profit. And yeah, this comes to the politics as well, because this is why it's pretty difficult to change the recent systems. Money, as we know it today, is also part of this economy. So it's really a difficult stuff. I don't want to go into details, but the recent bank system very much contributing to this unsustainable way of living. Yeah, and in some case we also talked about during the lunch, energy infrastructure replacement with additional enormous energy. As we talked about fracking and sand gas or sand tar, and to gain out fossil fuels in a different way. Actually, it's almost, we can say that almost cost more energy to get them out than just leave it there. And if you want to change the whole system, then you have to think on system level. So you can start bit by bit, but the final aim should be change the system. Otherwise, it will not work. We can talk about green energy, we can talk about efficiency, but in the end, if we do not change the system, then we will not have real results. Yeah. That can be done by legal regulation or incentives. The best is to use both to get people really move and think. You just heard a good example from the US that they organized this energy efficiency competition, and they were, I don't know, the award was $500 or something like that. And this is form of economic incentives, just to give them examples. Okay, the model itself, it's a quota scheme. If you, I don't know, coming from an ex-Soviet country and you're blessed to live long, then you may remember these quota issues. This is if you didn't have enough of some products, then you had some quota and you can get it by, I don't know, once a year or once a month, depending on the product. And now this is basically what we suggest to introduce, to have a quota system for resources. And it has 4 pillars, and just let's go through quickly. This is the core of the idea. It means if we start or we take the example of energy, it means that all individuals and companies receiving less and less quota annually, and they should deal with that. This is on one hand sort of pushing them to save energy, and as for companies is pushing them for new technologies. And what is the final aim? The final aim is to be sustainable and reach the carrying capacity, which means that we do not exceed those capacity that the globe can carry if we think on global level. I'm not saying it's easy, and it is very difficult to just say what the carrying capacity is or how much it is and from which resources. But this is not impossible. And in the end, if we do not limit ourselves, then the globe and the environment will limit us sooner or later, but probably it will be much more painful. This is a little bit like this emission trading system, if you like. You may be aware of that. And as for social aspects, we can say that this should be done, the allocation of quotas. Once the state or the bigger economic unit, which this will be introduced, defines what the carrying capacity and what the entire quota is, then the groups within that unit, like companies or interest groups, they can just define themselves how they share these quotas. As for people, obviously all individuals will receive the same quota, which sort of decreases the differences between individuals, like rich and poor. And it would cover all kind of fossil energy demands. Obviously, I didn't say it goes for fossil fuels and fossil energy, the quota system. And the saved quotas can be sold and exchanged for quota money. And if someone needs more quota, then they could buy it on a higher rate. I will say a bit more about quota money just in the next slide. And this is how it is received, it is born. So if you receive a quota, and if you, obviously you will consume some of it. But if you consume more, then you have to buy it for good price. If you spare some of the quota, then you can sell it to others or back to the states. And this is how the additional quota money or the quota money borns. This is not the money as we know it now. So it, as you can see, it has different features and recent money. And the main idea behind is just to make the business going and not allow people to store the money for long. Because the recent banking system is like if someone is rich, putting the money in the bank for an interest rate, so they will get more money out of the bank than they put it in. And the poor, obviously they don't have money, they ask for money and they need to pay back to the bank. So actually they're paying back more than they ask for. So if you think on long term, it is what it makes, just causing the poor even poorer and the rich even richer. This is the recent logic of banking system. And this kind of quota money would just entirely against this logic, just to put it simple. To support this change, green market would be established, and you can here read the basic features of this. Quota money and the quotas itself actually would just push the development for green business, and they could have this social and benefits I explained. And in the end, again, it would go for sustainability as well. And to support all of this, revolving fund would be established, and that would help the economic flow and quota money movements within the system. This is the main features. This is a very economic part, and people much smarter than I am put all this together. So some parts even I don't understand, but they say it's work, and actually it's an international cooperation. And an advisory service would inform all stakeholders, citizens, industries to how they can live with this quota system and how they can move forward. It can increase employment, which is a very important issue today as well, and could give a new approach, new incentives to the recent economic state as we are now, because we saw big troubles a few years ago, and many of the economists saying that in this recent economy we just heading another for. You can see the strengths here, and it is feasible regardless to the globalization. So it's in smaller units it can be established, and it shouldn't be entirely independent of the state. So it's a convertible in a way, and it can be applied to all natural resources. I told, but it was easier to explain on the energy use, and as I told, it stimulates economy and competitiveness, research and development, and also social justice. But I wanted to say that it is fair if we mention the weaknesses as well. It's really difficult to get around with politicians and the economy, and aspects of population growth should be included as well in this model. And yeah, we experienced in the practice when we actually elaborated a legislation for the Hungarian parliament, and actually I have it with me. It's a legal test was done already. It was front of the parliament, but then really it was in the last minute before this new parliament, and we discussed this with the industry, energy sector, so all kind of stakeholders were involved in this model. So it was not just like a freaky idea of some NGOs. It was really discussed and accepted basically by industry as well, most of them. But finally we failed because of the hugest fossil fuel power plant in Hungary. They managed to sort of buy one of the parties, and they just blocked the whole process, and the new parliament didn't want to deal with this piece of legislation, and they had good results because they are very much attached to the fossil fuel industry. So it's not like night dreaming or daydreaming. This kind of system, it can be done, it can be implemented, but it is really difficult to get through the politicians. And this is supported now, the Resource Cap Coalition, this kind of system. The founders are CEEweb from Central and Eastern Europe, UNPED from Belgium, and Ecologistas en Acción in Spain. But since the start, many other organizations joined us. So we are working on it, and we will see what happens. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Prommer. We will take questions now.
Hi, my name is Koen. I'm from the Netherlands. I'm a MA student here. I was wondering, I think it's a nice idea, but I think there's a problem because when, for example, Europe implements this, and I think Europe will lose a lot of competitiveness with the rest of the world when you think about energy, because China or the United States could produce energy way cheaper than Europe, because I think quotas will increase the prices of energy within Europe, because it's more expensive to produce cheap energy. So I only think this could work if the whole world implements it, not only a part, because then, and that's why I think the governments are also against it, because they lose a lot of their competitiveness, like their local, their national economies would suffer a lot if other parts of the world could produce way cheaper than they can do. So I was wondering, what is your view on that?
Yes, you are right. If you think of the regular traditional economy, but this is why we have this this part, the quota money, which is sort of also, this is also money. So industry can use it. It can be used by individuals, and it can just move the economy as well. So this why this quota money is included in the system, and this is why green market is included in the system. So basically, the whole idea is to support research and development, and in the logic of this model is your question is not very much of a problem if you think a bit more through, but yeah, you are right in a way that it would be much more efficient if it would be implemented in a large scale, and not only in Europe or not only in one country. It can be done, but obviously, if it's too small, you are probably, yes, it will kill the economy there, or this you mentioned, it can be a problem. But if you go larger, it can work.
Thank you for the presentation. It was really interesting, and I agree with a lot of the ideas, but the idea of the quota money wouldn't imply the fact that the only investments will come from the state, and we already tried it in many countries, and because if there's no interest rate, private will not have any incentive in lending money to others, which would not lead to investments, and which will not lead to any sort of industrial development or even technological development, and it also would imply the fact that state will nationalize all the bank, and they have to buy all the banks, as a bank will not, they wouldn't have any reason to exist, as they won't make any more profit on money. And if we don't apply this to a global scale, that will imply that people from investors will just move their money to other banks, which will actually keep on having normal money with interest rates. So I think it's a bit, I don't know, it's a bit utopian maybe.
Yeah, I mean, we heard about a question earlier about critical mass. This is one of the questions, and the other thing is that yeah, we can stay in the recent logic and the recent mainstream economy, but we see the consequences. So sooner or later it should be changed, because it simply cannot work. So this is just a try to give something new into the system. And yeah, I understand your questions, and I think it's a matter of decision and a matter of people if they want to really change the economy and the whole world. But yeah, probably investors and big companies will keep the same logic, because it's very difficult to change the structure. But on long term, if you want to have results, you should change the system and structures. So that's what I cannot, say if it will happen or not. It's impossible to tell. But if we stay in the recent logic, we will face challenges.
Any more questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Prommer.
Thank
Can
you.
we have a second round of applause?